Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be fixing a cape on a front zipped jacket. Basically, the jacket here has been formed. We've already made the jacket. If you don't know how to make a jacket like this, a bustier, a front zip bustier, please go back to one of my previous videos in which I explained in depth about it. So we're going to first be taking the neckline. I cut a neckline. The depth of the neckline is 4 inches and the width of it is 5 inches. That's the measurement I'm taking all around. So I'll have to measure all around it to be able to get the length of how long the cape is going to be. That measurement is very important. How long the cape is going to be and how wide I want the cape to be. The depth, the width, the length of the cape on this particular one, the length of my neckline is about 22 inches. Okay, the length of it, and the depth of it, as in how wide I want the cape to be, is going to be 9 inches. That is what I'm taking the measurement there. So I'm going to go to my lining. What I'm using here is lining. Unfortunately, I just realized I didn't video how I folded it, but the next video shows when I place it on the fabric how I videoed it. So what I just did basically was that I measured out the width of 9 inches and I measured out the length of 22 inches and I cut, but I folded it on bias so that it will have that stretch. If you can see it there, that was what I measured there. Then after I finish measuring, I'll take it back and pin it. I take it back to the fabric, to the blouse itself, and pinned it all around. I pinned it all around to make sure that it was enough, because this is just a draft. I just pin it onto the blouse itself where it's going to stay, okay, to make sure that it's enough, it is wide enough, and it is not too long. And you can see as I'm pinning it right now, I pin it from the inside. I'm pinning it using my pins down to make sure that it is wide enough and it is long enough. For this one, I'm using the lining fabric, the lining of the fabric I'm going to use for the cape, because I'm going to drape it on it and see how long it can go. After I've pinned it down, I now take it to the mannequin and see how it stands on the mannequin. After putting it back on the mannequin, I now come and I trim it off. I trim off the excess to be sure that we're getting the exact shape of the collar. I trim it off, I confirm it with it, and as you have seen, as I'm trimming it off, I'll trim off the excess from the sides. Then as you can see, we've gotten one side, and that one side is perfect. So that one side is what we're going to take back to the table to work with. You can see the right side of it is very okay. It's okay there. So what I'm going to do is I take it off and I now take it back to my fabric and recut it now on my fabric. But from here you can see how I folded out the fabric. I folded it out by placing it on bias, folding it on bias. After I fold it on bias like this, I now get the length of how long I want it to be. I've checked how long it is on the lining. You can see I've checked it on the two sides that the lining will be able to accommodate it. So I now fold it into two again. You can see it is folded on bias. That is how I folded the initial lining that I used and I placed upon the blouse when I was cutting it. So I just put it back. I put the lining that I have already draped and is long enough and wide enough for the blouse, for the neck collar, and I cut it out. I cut it out neatly, leaving about ½ an inch for sewing on it. It makes it easier. This was how I cut out the lining also. So I just take it and I trace it all the way down. After cutting, I'll take you to the ironing table, whereby I'll be putting my gum on it, my cloth gum or fusible interlining. Please note that while you're cutting your cloth gum, also this cloth gum, you cut it the same shape, unbiased, the same way, fold it unbiased the same way in which you cut it. You iron it down onto the wrong side of your fabric. After doing that, we sew it. I join it by the sides, and I also join it. I come back and I pin it onto the fabric, and be sure that it is long, onto the blouse itself, pardon me, and make sure that it is long enough. After pinning it, I sew it down, using one side to sew down and using the other side to cover it up. And that is basically how this hood has been fitted. It's very easy to do. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did so, please subscribe, like, and drop comments. Thank you. See you in the next video. Bye.